Hello and welcome. Today we have a special guest, Amber Dobkins, who is an author in sacred medicine who recently put out her own book called Sacred Legacy. So today I want to dive into conversation about what legacy is and how we actually step into that in the here and now. So Amber, I just want to first of all say I love you. And I am celebrating you and congratulating you and feeling all the feels with you through this experience because I got to see the behind the scenes, which is really cool. And I just want you to just chime in like first of all, where did the idea come from? And what is it working within you, your daughter, and your mother as you're putting this work out into the world?
Oh, well, let me just start by saying I love you too. We have such an awesome connection that really we had right from the start. As soon as we met each other, it was like we just knew we were soul sisters. So happy to be here. The book Sacred Legacy came into being, I guess you could say, right after Sacred Medicine came out. So really going through the process with you in the book Sacred Medicine opened up something within me that I don't know, just made me want more. And I knew that I could share more. So really the idea came through because I was becoming a grandmother. So seeing my lineage extend out even further was such an initiation for me. And I know you walked through that with me also. So you got to hear all the feels that I had becoming a grandma because it was a little unexpected. So
One
for
of my
me, I'm still young.
one of my favorite conversations. I remember you had this like aha moment, like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to pass recipes forward. I'm not ready. And like just moving through that with you it was a very sacred experience for me from the outside looking in of all the emotions that you moved through and then the rituals that you created for her, for your daughter, for her, for this whole legacy that you're doing within your family unit. It was so magical.
It was magical. Like you said, there were so many emotions coming through me. So there were some challenges and actually some old wounds that I had to work through. And that's when I realized that this is bigger than just becoming a grandma. This is my legacy. This is the generational process that I want to pass on. I want to pass on healing. I don't want to pass on more trauma. So for my little grandbaby, I want to give her all the healing that I can by healing myself first and passing that on.
Oh, that's so potent. It's so potent. And that's so much of this work. And you and I've had really deep conversations because we intertwine a little bit about our theories and philosophies on how we work with people. But that ancestral medicine is what holds most people back, and we've seen that. And right now I'm working with that within wealth codes and sacred wealth and bringing that's a piece of my legacy that I want people to heal those wounds. And it starts at home, right? It starts within our family unit. And it's just such a beautiful thing to unwind and unravel and decide what we want to keep as traditions, what we want to let go of as beliefs, and be playful with it. And I think that's something that you really, really gifted at is that even though you were moving through the emotions, you found these pockets of playfulness and creativity. And I'd love you to speak into that because I think people miss the boat on that part. That they get into the healing and they get so heavy into the healing that I think they forget to have fun and appreciate and have gratitude for what's already shifted.
Yes, I totally agree because the first part of making a change or transformation within your family is awareness, noticing that you want to make a change, which can be heavy. I mean, there was a lot of regret that I had when I had that awareness. However, working through that, like you said, the playfulness of it, I started looking at the world as my playground. It's a mystical world. Like everything can speak to you if you let it. So for me, when I see a little dragonfly, I let myself take in that medicine from the universe and say, look at how unique it is. It's such a strange looking thing. It's unique. it's colorful, but there's this childlike wonder within me that's like, but it's so fun. It's
It's
so
so
much fun to look
fun.
at.
So
So
what would you say to somebody that wants to do this work? Now you're in a really unique situation because you did this with your daughter and your mother. Wonder if it's a family and the others don't want to do the work. So how can somebody step into the medicine of sacred legacy on their own?
yeah, I mean, I think that we only have control over ourselves. So really, you have to accept that you will probably be doing it on your own. Each of us, my mother, myself, and my daughter, we all did the work on our own. My daughter and I did a little more together, but as we did the work on our own, we passed on the work that we'd done to the next person, and they can carry on that torch, carry on that legacy. So really just feeling into looking at the patterns of your family, looking at not judging it, not saying that these things are bad, but recognizing the things that maybe you'd like to shift or change for the next generation, and knowing that your parents did the best they could. They did what they could with the knowledge that they had at the time. And things are always changing, always changing. So we get to go with the flow of that change and say, okay, how can I make this better?
That's
Instead of making it
beautiful.
worse, instead of taking the trauma and piling on more trauma, or focusing on it and letting it continue by focusing on it.
Now, you and Julia have a magical relationship, anyways. I love your daughter, and I feel so blessed that I've gotten to know her and your grandbaby. When you've done things because you were a homeschool mom, did this type of work incorporate into their upbringing too, or is this more of a newer aha that you and Julia are now working through these traumas together, or was it always there? Was it like threaded through her upbringing?
I definitely think it was threaded through her upbringing. Now, there was different ways that I dealt with it. In the beginning, I thought church was the answer for us. Like, okay, I want to have a really tight knit family because I come from a divorced home, as well as my husband. His parents were divorced, so we wanted to make sure that our family unit stayed together, and we thought church was the answer. And church did help, but it also became part of our trauma.
Yeah.
So while it did do a lot of the work that I wanted it to, there came a point where I had to say, this is no longer working for us, and shift into something else. So really, the deep, deep work that we started was when Julia was a teenager. And I got to see all the things that I wanted to protect her from, all of the pain that I wanted to save her from. I actually had contributed to some of that pain for her.
Mm.
That we do, as parents, we are going to make some mistakes. We are going to cause our children pain in some way, but we can also heal that with them. So once I saw the pain in my daughter's eyes and that I was part of that pain, we decided to work together to heal it. And for us, that was energy healing.
That's so courageous for all of you, and that you actually took ownership on that. And that's so beautiful in itself. I think that's a rites of passage, and that's legacy work all on its own merit, is that there was a conscious decision that, hey, we made this as a family, and we're going to heal it and fix it as a family. We're going to solve it as a family. It's so beautiful. There's so much, I think, in several people that I've worked with, like, there's that I'm not taking ownership for that, and I think that makes more challenge, more struggle. The longer people say, I'm not, no, that's on them. Instead of saying, we all have a piece of that puzzle. And we didn't get here because of one or the other. It's always a both and kind of situation that I find. And you're right, like the kids don't come with instruction manuals. And if they did, we probably wouldn't read them. But there's so much to learn. I have a question for you, because this has come up in my practice quite a bit. that I find when there's something, say teens or whatever age the child is, I feel like it's an invitation for us as the adult to heal within our own wounding. Like it's mirrored through our babies, it shows up. And I've seen that through so many clients. And I just wonder if you want to speak into that at all, or if you've noticed that, or how you've seen that even in your own family. Like when Julia goes through something, have you noticed that something that you also went through maybe at that same time and space or age?
Absolutely. I definitely have had to go deeper into my childhood wounds by watching my daughter live out her life. And there's so many times, sorry, my phone goes off at 11:11. I love numbers. So
Yes.
11:11.
Let's celebrate that. Woo! And for me, it's 1:11. So perfect.
Yay. So there's so many times that I had to stop and think about whether I was parenting out of my old wounds or out of allowing my daughter to make her own path. Because so often we parent and we say, well, this happened to me or that happened to me, and I don't want that to happen to you. So then we parent out of fear or from our old wounds, where I have to let her have her own experience. We go through things to learn lessons, to gain wisdom, for experience, and she's got to gain that experience on her own. Sure, I can share my wisdom and she can learn from that, but until she experiences it, it's not hers.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, and then we tell people that as practitioners, right? Like, we can't do the work for you. Like, we know the path of least resistance. We still can't do it for them. And I think as a parent, and now for you as a grandmother, and sometimes that's like, you got to, that has to be like traumatizing almost in its own way. And like, she has to do it on herself, but it still hurts you, right? Like you feel the gut punch that you see her potentially doing something that might cause this downfall within.
Absolutely. Yes, I still have the pain within watching her go through things, and I'm always there for her. I'm not going to just leave her hanging, but I also know I can't rescue her. I can do all that I can to help her, but she has to make her own decisions. Otherwise, she may resent me because she made decisions to please me instead of doing what she needed to do. And that's where I think a lot of my work started, because even when we were in the church, I decided that I wanted to change up our traditions. I wanted to celebrate different holidays. I wanted to do rituals and things like that weren't so popular in the church. And when I made that decision, it was for myself. It was so that I could connect more deeply with the meaning of the season or the tradition, more with my spirituality, and honestly, more with my family. Because there are so many things that we do just because it's society's normal. Like there were so many times that we gathered together and opened presents, and we didn't feel connected as a family. We felt like we were just doing something
Going
to
through
do.
the motions, right?
Yes.
So
So when I got to choose my own way and people allowed me to do that, that was so freeing for my soul. And that's, I think, where I started my healing process.
that's so beautiful. So I want to wrap this up with a question for you, for the moms that are listening in, or the parents or caretakers listening in, that are watching their children go through a hardship or a challenge. And what can the parent or the caretaker do to self-care without trying to mother too much or parent too much, and let the child have their own experience and go through it so that they can learn the lessons that are being offered? What can we do as the parent to help with that need to, like, I think partly that mothering energy becomes very masculine because we're trying to fix and solve and do instead of being back in our feminine, which is more of a lean back. How do we lean back with love and still take care of ourselves and hold space and say, okay, I'm here when you need me,
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, the first thing that comes up for me as you ask that question is to trust that the universe has our best interest at hand. Sometimes a struggle becomes our greatest strength. It becomes the thing that propels us forward and maybe even pushes us into our purpose. So, taking away a struggle for our kids isn't really doing them any justice. Now, we can help them through it, we can hold space for them, just as you said. But I think really asking the question is, what can we learn from this? You can ask yourself that and your child as they're going through it. What can we learn from this? And not get caught up in the drama.
Yeah.
Because so often, even as a parent, I get caught up in my daughter's own drama. And then I want to fix it and talk about it and tell her what to do and what I think is best. And if I just sit back and say, what can we learn from this? It shifts the energy away from the drama and onto, let's trust that this is happening for a reason or to teach us something. And how can we turn this into something that we're learning from? So you turn it into a good instead of a bad, a
The
positive
sacred
instead of a good.
medicine. It's the sacred
Yes.
medicine. So in those times when you feel like you need to fix, though, how do you bring yourself back home? Like, how are you bringing yourself back into that grounded, centered space? Like, I know there's lessons here that she's learning. Like, do you have a practice? Is it breath work? Is it ritual? Is it going on a walk on your beautiful Mystic Meadows pasture? Like, what brings you that clarity where you know you can let go and surrender and that she's going to still be okay?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many different methods and things that we can do. I love being in nature, so going for a walk or being in my backyard absolutely helps me. Excuse me, that really helps me. In the book, we actually talk about 5 steps or 5 essentials that we used to allow our children to choose their own path, to be their most authentic self, and accepting them and supporting them for whatever they choose. And those 5 pieces, the first one is awareness. We need to become aware that we want to make a change, that we want to transform something. Then setting up boundaries. Some of the boundaries are, what do I allow in my life and what do I not allow? And some of them are, what's an integrity for me? Not betraying yourself. So figuring out what your truth is and holding to that is part of the boundaries. Then there's authenticity, really being true to yourself, just like I said, not betraying yourself and going against the grain when you need to, having the courage to show up fully in who you are and say, you know what, that's not aligned with who I am, and moving forward in that. And then there's perspective, looking at everything from a different angle. We all have judgments and perceptions and upbringings that cause us to look at things usually from one angle. When we can step back and be the observer and look at things from multiple different angles, then we may see that these struggles are positive or doing something for the good. And then the last one is acceptance, accepting what is, trusting that it's there for a reason, and that our kids have the wisdom. They have a source within them of guidance and wisdom. And we have to trust that they can tap into that and follow it. And if we're just constantly being that wisdom and guidance for them, they're not going to tap into it on their own. They're going to keep coming to you. And it's fabulous to have your kids come to you for wisdom. But I think one of the best things we can offer our kids is to tell them, hey, what do you feel about that?
Oh,
What's an
yes.
integrity for you? What is your heart telling you? And then offering your guidance underneath their wisdom, if that makes sense, or
Perfect sense.
along with
Perfect
it.
sense. Yes, it complements each other, and then
Yes.
you what I love with that is, even with talking with friends, like you and I will get on and you have your way of doing things and I have my way of things. And sometimes that births a whole new way to see things because the two come together and make one. And I think that's beautiful. We're both independent in our decisions and our challenges and our medicine and in our way of seeing the world. But then there's also this merging that comes together and creates another thought. another way, another perspective. And I think that is so beautiful. And everything you're sharing, and it goes way beyond just family units. Like these things can be used in our businesses, our lives, and in every type of relationship. And I thank you so much for sharing your work with the world and for being in my world and my life and all of the things. Is there anything that you want to tell our listeners before we send our goodbyes?
Oh, yes. I just want to say that there is hope. You can change your legacy at any age, no matter if you're young or old. And I believe that relationships are a legacy. People will remember how you made them feel. So show up in your authentic truth and integrity, and that will be passed on for generations. Your stories will be told to your grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Oh, I'm taking that right into my heart. So beautiful. Thank you again for being here. I'll make sure I put the links to Amber's website and her book, and it's now up on Audible and all of the things in the show notes. So please pop over and check her out and let me know if you have any questions. Big love to you all.